Hello everyone, I'm Krasia Tasiu, and we will look at the horoscope of Kirk Douglas, who died yesterday at the age of 103. His horoscope is very interesting, not because he was a great actor, very handsome, very charming, but it is because he lived very long. There was some time, a couple of years ago, when I was collecting statistics and horoscopes of people who lived very long, and his horoscope was among them. And I can tell you this is amazing horoscope to learn from. So I will share my screen with you to tell you what I see, and maybe this information will be very interesting for you. So this is the horoscope of Kirk Douglas. I'm using the fixed sidereal Babylonian zodiac, the way it was used 5,000 years ago. Now this zodiac is using the equal house systems. If you want to use my system, you can go to astro.com and opt for Fagan Bradley Ayanamsha. Then you will get most probably the same coordinate system. Now we're having ascendant Capricorn, and we if we and the ascending degree is the 7 degrees of Altair, a star Altair, the eagle on the sky, which gives powerful intuition to people, which gives to some even mediumship qualities. Now also people who have ascendant Capricorn have the typical features which are known to be described by this ascendant. So how Capricorn describes him, you know that he had very typical chin, and this is typical for people who have this rising sign and degree, oval face. Actually, the ascendant Capricorn pretty much describes him. Now also, the particular placement between the horns of Capricorn, these are called lustful degrees. These are people who will change partners oftentimes without discipline. And we know that this is valid for him when you read his brief biography in astro.com or in Wikipedia. You will see that he started his sexual life at the age of 14, and he had multiple partners. So this is because of the horns of Capricorn on the ascendant. Another thing is that we're having of course, I will tell you about his longevity and many other interesting things which I discovered in the horoscope, but his lucky star is absolutely Venus. Venus gives him the charming, the handsome expression, the charms. Venus was a morning star. So at very early age, Venus gave him the visibility, the opportunity to become actor. And Venus is in Libra in the 21st degrees. And there we have something very, very amazing. In the 21st degree of Libra to the 24th degrees of Libra, we're having the crown. What is the crown? Crowning people. Crowning, especially when Venus is there, this is literally crown. Not only that Venus is in her own place in Libra, morning star, to give him early the beauty of what he was doing, but also Venus is in the constellation of the Northern Crown, to be crowned. His talents were crowned, gave results at a very early age. The sun and the moon are very important. Of course, he's born on a full moon, just after the full moon. The 24th degrees, you see, of Scorpio, where the sun is a degree which are called power. Degrees that are called power, and he obviously had very powerful position. He was also, I think, producing his own films. Another thing is that the moon is in the degree in the 25th. You see, this is the full moon. The full moon often, in most cases, gives wealth with, of course, turbulences, because we don't know, and I didn't find any information about his financial situation, but these degrees can also give, the full moon can give wealth, but also some ups and downs so is valid for the square between Jupiter and Saturn, which would create situations like losing property or losing the wealth of the father, the wealth which one would inherit from the father figure, losing property. So these are on the other hand, the 25th degrees of Taurus is degrees which are about exceptional mind, people who are very smart, people who have beautiful mothers and very awakened, very flexible and talented mind. On the other hand, the 25th degrees is just near Capella, between Rigel and Capella, degrees of amazing wealth, money. Capella, here the star of Capella is projected directly on his horizon. Always the star will shine for him and give him wealth. And so was during all his life. Another thing is very interesting. When he was at very young age, we said that he lived in poverty. Look what is happening. Who is giving the poverty? Saturn, of course. Saturn is the one who is responsible for the karmic lessons. His ascendant ruler is detriment, heavily detriment and retrograde in Cancer. And that is why at early age, because especially the ascendant is ruling the first years of our lives, that is why at early age he was living in poverty. But this was changed very early, because very early Venus was shining. Also already at age of 8, she gave her first heliacal rise, and not her first heliacal rise, apologies, her first rising time, and with this the situation around him started to improve. Now another very interesting thing is that the head of Ophiuchus, one second, yes, yes, this was the midheaven that I wanted to tell you about. Look, this is the midheaven, 2nd degree of Scorpio. In the 1st degrees of Scorpio already, and this is the midheaven, the most important point in the horoscope along with the ascendant. You have the head of Ophiuchus. This is Asclepius. This is about... this is projection, simple projection on the head of Ophiuchus, on his midheaven. This is how the ancients describe this, I will tell you. They say, people will be glorious only by themselves, only by the way they look. They will express glory, glorious people. And this is happening in his 11th house, of his social circle, of his gains, of his contacts with the public. This is the 11th house, and he was glorious indeed, glorious. It's about glory, and it's about the full moon happening in the 11th and the 5th houses of gains and luck. And you know, the 11th house is the house of the good spirit, the 5th house is the house of the good fortune, so definitely this has to do with money and luck. And the head of the Ophiuchus is giving also powerful intuition. Ophiuchus, you know, is Asclepius, he is the healer, can give people who are very philosophical, very much devoted to the occultism. And I can tell you that there is no person on high position in Hollywood who is not occultist. So I am sure, without any doubt, that Kirk Douglas was occultist, and you see this from the 2nd degrees of Scorpio. How exactly this worked, I am not sure, but it was hidden and it was secretive, because Mars is invisible in the 12th house together with Mercury. And Mercury is in the vicinity of Shaula, the star of the poison of the stink of the scorpion. So he was into magic, he was into occultism. You can see from the star of Altair, and that is why at his late, I don't remember at what age, I read it somewhere, but late, he went to Israel, to Jerusalem, to spend his time in devoting his time to God. So he was very much into the spirituality later on, but I think in his early age, he was occultist, heavy occultist for sure. That is why they raised the dynasty, and his sons and his grandchildren are all in Hollywood. This is not happening just like that. So it is glory, it is charms, it is beauty, but it is combined with the occultism, which we know to exist in Hollywood, but we also see it in his horoscope. What is happening with Saturn? Like we said, Saturn is detriment, and Saturn gave him the difficulties in his childhood, but also the difficulties with his marriages. He had multiple marriages, I think 3 or so. 3 marriages, because Saturn is heavily squaring Venus. Why he still kept marriages? It is because Saturn is in a diurnal chart, and Saturn like this as such is not that evil, but Saturn was the one who was bringing him the divorces. Saturn was the one who would bring him problems in his marriages. So another very, very interesting thing, of course, is the position of Ketu, and also the position of Rahu, and the position of Ketu in the 6th with Pluto would show past incarnation, where the person would be very much into the routine, would be serving someone, would not have directly high position in society, most probably would be dedicated to some administrative exact work. In any case, would be very much into the routine, would be very much into but in this incarnation, his interest was very much to the 12th house matters. And what is this? These are tempos, isolation, solitudes. Not like in his past incarnations, he would be competitive. He would be following very much the routine scenarios. In this incarnation, like we see, he was very much interested in solitude, having time alone, spending time in temples. And this is exactly what he did when he was aged already. But this was always what he desired to do. In the beginning of his early life, he would do this as a form of occultism. Later on, I think after he was 70 or so, he practically did this by spending time in temples in Jerusalem, and this is all about the Rahu in his powerful position in Sagittarius. So as you can see, it is a horoscope of course, another very interesting thing is he has many children, I think 4, 5, 6 children. Yes, obviously, the sign of Libra is not very rich in terms of giving children, because Libra is a sign that is not fruitful. It's a barren. Capricorn is giving children, but it's both are lustful signs, Libra and Capricorn. Capricorn is denoting children for sure, but the moon in Taurus is certainly very blessing in terms of children. That is why he had many children. And he lost a child in 2004 when he was 80. I think his son was found dead. And I saw this via one very heavy primary direction, but we will not look into this. But again, this is happening because of the square between Saturn and Jupiter. And as you know, Jupiter is the main significator of children. So such thing, well, could have been predicted, unfortunately. Really unfortunately, and also because Jupiter is in a phase, which is a bit tricky. Jupiter is not very easy in a stationary phase, and like you see, Saturn was creating this aspect. Now he died yesterday or the day before yesterday, and he died when the perfected ascendant, because we all live in different cycles of our lives. We, like the first year of our lives would be ruled by the first house, the second, and so on. They go repetitively. Therefore, maybe if you look behind, you will notice that your life is having really repetitive cycles. The events would have repetitive nature, and this is very natural because the universe is cyclic. But what we see this year, the cycle of the 8th house was activated, and there was a primary direction with Saturn, which also created the end of life. Another thing is which played a very significant role is the multiple and very heavy eclipses which took place on this axis here, the luminaries, and the sun is helic. When the helic is afflicted by anyway, be it eclipse or heavy primary direction or transit, there is a risk of end of life. Of course, he was aged enough because this is literally a chart example of longevity. Why? There is this notion in the traditional astrology, I think started with the Greeks, then the Arabs were doing this. It is to look at the Alkokoden, and Alkokoden is the giver of years, the giver of the years of life, and only by judging on how the Alkokoden is placed in the horoscope, we can see approximately. It's never exactly, but by the Alkokoden, then it's approximately. It's a good indication, though, how long the person will live. However, I feel that the Alkokoden as a single construct to use when looking at longevity is not enough. We should look at other things. The Almuden is the planet which is describing the person the best. It is exactly what we are. He was Venus. Venus is his Almuden. This is the most powerful planet in the horoscope. So Kirk Douglas was Venus, wasn't he? I found him very charming, and this comes the charming expression and aura you cannot get from Saturn. You can get it really from Venus. And Venus is powerful in the constellation of the crown, in his own sign, and from the midheaven aspect in the ascendant. She was his savior. She was really his morning star. She was the Inanna from Akkad. She was the one who would really be responsible for his luck. Now, in this case, Venus is indeed afflicted by Saturn, but because this is a very wide affliction, I'm not thinking that this would give end of life. The primary direction of Saturn, activated, fallen, retrograde, detriment, was the reason. But another thing is that, as you can see, the helic, the first breath we take, the first aeon of light, God's light that comes into our bodies, is not afflicted by any means. That's why he lived so long. Another thing is that his guardian angel, the Alkokoden, and also the giver of life, the guardian angel was Jupiter, who would give him luck and blessing and would be soft with him, would give him literally very easy and good life. Of course, with some lessons, but we all have them. Another thing is that the opposition of Jupiter and Venus is saying that he liked to spend, he liked luxurious life, he liked the best what he could take from this lifetime. Another thing which is very heavy is, I think in 1990, which year was that? 1990. He was 75, so it was 1991. He had two helicopter accidents, and he had, I think, at that same age, he had, one second, what was the condition? Excuse me. Yes, he had a stroke, and because of this stroke, he couldn't talk for a while. And I followed this, and I can tell you that only by transit at the moment of his accident and stroke, Saturn was here on the 7 degrees Capricorn against his natal Saturn and with Uranus. And guess what? In his natal chart, Saturn and Uranus are forming opposition, and they are not friendly to each other because they have a bit of competition over Aquarius. And why? Because in the Greek mythology that Saturn came and castrated his son Uranus, so there is no way for the two to be very, very harmonious together and friendly. That is why you can see that this happened. His Saturn is not well placed, retrograde, detriment. His Saturn is receiving the opposition from Uranus. So this is one thing which led to these accidents. Why he lose his speech? Because Mercury, invisible, is with the invisible Mars, with Rahu. And this was the reason why he lost his speech. This was also activated in another way. So basically, this was brief description of this very, very interesting horoscope of Kirk Douglas, who was brilliant in his career, who was occultist, who was very intuitive, who was talented, very talented, who very early in life got his opportunity to review his talent. And also you can see also the issues and the challenges he had mainly related to his private life. And of course the loss of his son was something beyond comprehension, of course. So you can see this is the lot of fortune. I forgot to tell you here on the seventh house is really powerful placement for wealth and generated through the right contacts, through the right agreements, to knowing the right people, knowing kings. So this is the placement of the lot of fortune. Beautiful placement. In any case, you see the challenges. You see that not when we are, there is a balance in nature. When we have one thing, we don't have another. This is the balance, having malefic and benefic planets in the horoscope, in the solar system. However, this is a horoscope that we can learn a lot from. Beautiful, beautiful horoscope. I think that he had very, he had depth because the sun is in Scorpio. He had this magnetic aura and everyone wanted to be around him and with him, especially women. He couldn't even resist. He was very charming and he was very interesting. He has wonderful qualities. I also think that the fact that the sun is in the vicinity of Antares is also another factor to speak about his luck and royal power, if you want. He created the dynasty, if you want, of the Douglas family. Now the grandchildren, the grand and grandchildren are remaining in Hollywood. How? I don't know, but there is a lot of occultism and there is a lot of hidden, secretive information here. So hope this was interesting for you. And if you understand from numerology and this cipher of what was it, 9th December 1916 is telling you about his life and longevity, share this information with us. Would be very interesting. I would find it fascinating. Thank you so much and see you next time.